11. With the very partial address he has, it is just an apartment building, so Steve and Bud take a day to check it out. They know the car to search for, and need to verify whether Cooper is there, or if it is still a ruse. He needs to find out from his friends when he wakes up that next night. Waking up in his not-so-comfortable bed next to Patricia, he smiles at the other face smiling back at him. He is on the cot, which is at about the same height as the bed she is on, hanging from the wall. He doesn't mind the discomfort, with this way of waking up, her hand brushing through his hair, and his hand reaching for her chin. When it does, her face blushes, and she turns her head downward, which in a few days, she would need to spend blood to do this natural human thing, likely not bothering, but if he can bring this reaction from her, he would try. He asks,
"Would you like some more of my blood tonight?"
No, thanks, I don't want that to be an every night thing. I don't like being fed, like I'm a child.
You practically are, my child. You are a baby vampire. Until you get used to it, you might need help. It is okay, we don't need to make this a nightly thing, but it does show how strong you can be. Newly formed vampires are often very thirsty each day, for the first many nights. I'm proud you are strong up here,"
he said, pressing an index finger to her head.
"And here."
He presses an index finger in the middle of her chest, over where her heart used to beat.
"Stop, you tease,"
she says, swatting his hand away. She next gives him a serious look, as serious as she can make anyways, and it makes him chuckle.
"What's on the agenda tonight?"
"Well, a cop is trying to figure me out, and I need to figure him out, before he becomes someone that hunts us."
"What does it matter? We are vampires, and he is a human." "Well, is he a human?"
"Oh, my dear, that's cute. To start, I'm so proud of you for saying that. We, as vampires, are anything but powerful immortals who bend humans to our will anytime, or anywhere. Many mortals have been hunting us over the centuries, and have been doing a pretty decent job of it. We often want to get control of them before they get themselves killed. I don't want to kill him, but he is coming dangerously close to exposing us, and if he goes too far, he will get himself killed. We can't let many humans know that we exist, or we will be killed. There aren't just humans that kill us, there are much more powerful things out there that hunt us, plus many humans centuries ago could kill us with literal divine power. It has been lost to most of them in the church's corruption and disillusionment of their faith over a long while, but some still hold old holy power and destroy us in practiced fashion."
Was it vampires who brought the corruption to the church?
He thinks about it, for about 10 seconds or so, and answers, bringing a smile to his face.
Good question. It is the sort of thing that has been happening over centuries, but it is something one of us, or collectively many of us would try to do. Especially to consider those of us a long while ago that were still self-righteous about doing church stuff, as vampires. Priests that get turned into vampires, and tell other vampires to repent, are just the worst. Anyway, not important. Right now I'm dealing with a detective, and need to try to help him forget that I am what we are, so that he can go back to his job.
Well, have fun with all of that jazz. I will be playing with the pets, and trying not to think someone killed me, just a few nights ago. I should probably get a move on with the job too. If I set something up, your guys would be able to get somewhere to pick up the data and notes I need, right? A lot of the info will be through the network applications and stuff, but I'll need some other data out of hard copies, and they probably shouldn't courier it here.
Sure, whatever you can think up, I'll have someone to a place that can be sent to as a courier. There is a dance studio we'll be going to. During the day there can be someone there to pick up documents and we will be able to get them late at night, or just have them brought to us in safety.
They both make sure they have clothes on, and walk up the steps to the waiting Happy Mutt at the top of the steps, just beyond the secret entrance to the hidey hole. Bite jumps up and flails his paws up toward Zook's chest as soon as he gets to the ground floor. Zook catches him by an arm perch so he doesn't flop to the floor. He says,
"Hello to you too, Bite,"
and pets him on the head. He doesn't bother to use the blood power to say hi to the dog right now, he has some projects for the night. Zook continues to walk through, and Bite follows close behind him. Fluffers walks up behind them and looks at the new lady of the house. Patricia looks down, squats down, and runs her hand through the cat's fur. The cat cannot help but walk around the non-human's hand, as she would put it, massage her back, and scratch behind her ears, purring her way to a hopeful sweet snack. Bud and Steve are back, and are in the living room, which is the direction where everyone is walking. Bud is on the couch, Steve is looking out of the window. Zook calls out as he enters the room.
Anything to report?
Yes, sir.
Calls out Steve, at his usual stand at attention pose. Bud is still sitting on the couch, expecting everything to flow out of Steve, which as usual, it does. Steve reports.
Sir, we found which one is likely Cooper's place. He parks at a certain spot. However, we are not 100% sure that it is his home. There are apartment numbers on the parking spaces, but about an hour after he left, another person took that parking space. They could be roommates, or it might just be that the apartment numbers are not well enforced. He is on the first floor of the building, but there are no windows in the hallway so we can make sure. He might know both of us, so it might break cover if we try to make sure which place is his, but we thought you might be able to figure out which one.
We go tonight, right now. Bring guns, but I don't want him dead. I don't want either of you dead either, so you know the drill. He is just doing his job.
Both nod and get moving toward the side door of the car. Zook looks over.
Do you have a laptop from the job with which you can work? Would they need to give you a laptop? We haven't gone over what you truly need.
Well, I can log into my company email and get a few things done, but I need my company laptop. I have it at home. I can go get it if.
He cuts her off.
No, your place is very likely being scouted out. We'll have one of my guys go get it during the day, and check for any tails. There might be human, or ghoul people watching, but they wouldn't be able to use special things like me.
She walks over to the house computer, and gets it going. Zook walks behind her to the computer chair.
I'm glad you are trying to get back into the job. Just relax here. Bite and Fluffers will keep you company, and we will get you set up, so that you can get your job done overnight. This is a bit more important, and when we can, I'll discuss things with your manager if things don't go well. If they don't like the idea of you getting a laptop, and working from home at night, I can make them let you.
He smiles, and she smiles back at him, through the reflection of the computer screen, with her smile bright as she looks at him. Patricia sees the password screen.
Password?
She asks, and he gives her the password. She enters it, and it gets into a regular screen.
Ew. Windows? Give me a Mac any day.
Hey now, don't you talk bad about my machine. Windows is better, and the hardware can be replaced. Macs need specific hardware, and just get more expensive. I'm not sure if we are as cool, if you are a Mac woman.
She smiles, he smiles, and turns away to prepare for the night. Patricia's smile fades, as she gets into the mindset of the job, or is it something else? Off to work they go. Steve, Bud, and Zook get into his custom car, and get moving. It would make things awkward if they would have their car bugged, which is why they usually kept it in their garage, but in this borrowed place, they didn't have one. They check it for bugs and don't find one. They aren't tailed, but Zook keeps watching behind them during the trip. Very few humans could hide from his gaze. Some skilled supernatural creatures or highly skilled human spies might be able to, but not some normally trained police detectives. He keeps watch behind them during the trip, and does not see anyone trying to follow them. It doesn't take them long to get into the apartment complex, and to the building. Cooper's car is gone from the parking lot, but in its place is another car. They take note of the apartment, and walk into the building. No one is in the hallway. It is only about 8 at night, so most would be home already. Zook isn't sure, but he takes a gander at the different doors of the place. The place where Cooper's car is parked is a plain door, just like the rest of them in the hall. He can also hear TV sets on in most places using his special ears. Zook walks up the hall once, then back the other way looking at the doors. There are no labels around, however. The apartment where Cooper's car is marked to be parked has something peculiar. On one of the hinges is a toothpick, a little trick he has heard about. If he opens the door it would snap and it would be known that someone entered, that is unless someone saw this. In the powers of supernatural senses, Zook uses his power to catch the feelings of the last person that touched this door. With this power, he can feel the emotion and complexity, depending on the situation. He can feel the spiritual strength of the last person to touch it. Whether it is a plain human, or a supernatural creature like himself, he can most often get a few clues. It is a vampiric thing, a psychic sense, to feel the wave of energy pulsing from objects that are able to be felt. The feelings he gets from this doorknob were fear, caution, and worry, and from what he could tell, it is from a normal human. Zook has become pretty good at picking locks over the decades. It is part of the job. He pulls out his lockpick, and goes to the common door lock and deadbolt of the detective's apartment. In less than a minute, he has them both unlocked. He waves over his driver and guard. Over that time, he pulls the very thin toothpick from the hinge. He whispers in Bud's ear,
"Don't let me forget that, just in case."
They walk into a messy bachelor's pad. As soon as they walk in, a room to the left, a kitchen, a room straight ahead, a living room, if it could be called that, to the right, a bathroom, and a short bit away from that, a bedroom. Zook whispers again in Bud's ear,
"Look for bugs, and cameras for a first sweep."
Bud checks the kitchen for listening devices, as Steve continues through to the living room, and isn't sure if he likes what he sees. A couch, a TV, an old grey and discolored recliner that might have once been black, and a trash can full of beer and soda cans to the side of the couch. On a side table, there were more plates, open cans, and a TV remote. Last is a whiteboard. It has a fairly close-up picture of his boss, aka the man walking around with him in the apartment, with the word, vampire, with a question mark over it. There are some other pictures, and writing, but it is prominent on the board. He isn't about to do anything in a panic though, he is a professional. He still looks around for strange things, and finds one. In one of the corners is a computer desk with a few notepads around it, but above the computer is a digital clock. Sure, in days gone by, people had clocks. You figured out the time when you didn't have a watch, or you set an alarm to get moving in the morning. Above a computer that has time on it, maybe, the computer wasn't always on, but he remembers the look of a clock like that. When he did look around online occasionally, he finds hidden camera stuff, and this is one of them. His boss's API, they are fake spies already, so he checks on that sort of stuff. They might be on already from a motion sensor, so he walks back to the hallway and snaps his fingers to get Bud's attention. Bud looks over. Steve has a hand out. He puts a finger to his lips and brings out his cell. In a roundabout way of charades, he tells him to turn his phone on silent and starts texting. Steve to Bud?
Yo. There is a hidden camera in the living room, and bad stuff in there. There are probably more.
Bud to Steve.
Yep, one in the kitchen. It has a motion sensor, and it's out, hopefully in time. I'm pretty sure that one doesn't pick up sound, but most of them do. I have some sturdy sticky notes. Do you want some to cover them? We can get rid of ones that pick up sound after checking with the boss.
Steve doesn't reply, he just nods. Without a word, and as quietly as they can, they sneak around the apartment. The clock camera is a bit tricky. They are able to reach it from a sort of open area between the kitchen and the living room. The kitchen isn't closed off from the living room. Steve reaches over the clock, and puts a sticky note on it. blocking it from catching much more than movement as it is being covered. They also find a light bulb camera in the living room using the bug detector, and cover that up as well. There is one fire alarm in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, one in the hall, and an extra one in the bedroom is unexpected, so that is checked. It has a camera on it as well which they cover. The bedroom doesn't have much in it, a fairly small bed, and nightstand. The bed is unmade, and a smaller TV than in the living room. The small closet is a slide-open door, which is open, and they quickly check it, and nothing but the usual clothes. A few old clothes are also tossed around the room. The two go back to the door and Steve sends a text to the boss. "Hey, so we looked through, and found some interesting things. Come in, phone on silent, quiet on closing the door." The door opens and Zook walks in. Steve explains by text. "There are bugs and cameras, mostly cameras around the place, we covered most of them but didn't destroy them. Wanted your suggestion." Zook texts back. "Good, don't destroy them, we'll uncover them when we leave, hopefully, they didn't pick up much." Zook checks the kitchen without surprise, the living room has some interest in it. The whiteboard has him as a main focus, and it didn't thrill him. He walks closer to see more of the board. There are a couple of notepads, and other pictures around the place. Zook directs his guards by text, to check the pages, and pictures, to see if there were other prominent things. On the board is the picture of him, a dry erase marker of vampire in red, circled a couple of times. Also listed. During the day. Easy with criminals. Evidence. Blood. Real friends. A picture of the dance studio possibly zoomed in, but a close picture of a couple of times, where there are some guards around during their meetings. There is more marker of. Dance studio needs guards. There is a picture of Steve walking around their borrowed home. There is a picture with Bud and Steve walking Patricia into the borrowed home, with a red marker, dead, over the picture. Yep, he is at the cliff looking over. It would just take a little tip for him to dive into either the conspiracy theories, or hunting them, which he has to stop. He is one of the decent ones just trying to do his job. Around the place, there are a few different piles of pictures and notepads. Dates and times listed of nothing, or sections of times when things are happening. From the labeling on the listing, it shows times of his society's meetings, and lists of the regular training for the dance studio. He certainly checks out the place often, but never gets close. There are pictures of multiple angles of the studio, including the back of it. There were also pictures of him going into the police station with donuts during the night. Steve finds a couple of notepads of when Cooper talked to Gables, a one-sided conversation of information he is trying to find out about him. They check around, and between the mattress, there is another notepad of thoughts, and possible fears of ever getting too close. Noting to get out late in the afternoon, and never staying there at night in fear he would be found. He also has on a notepad some info about Zook, his old home address, and a question mark on why he doesn't go back there. Records of payments of the house, and that he owned it, and other information, including the house he owned before that one. Soon, they need to find him, soon. Cooper is watching the dance studio, that needs guards, when large groups of people go in at night, but not when a kids' ballet class, and an adult dancing class, come in during the week. That night there are guards around the place, dressed up in suits. He wondered why they would be dressed up in suits if they were supposed to be a little less conspicuous, but perhaps they needed to look professional for their masters. He is figuring things out. He is so close to some sort of proof, but getting close to them would be a mistake, he knows. It has never been known, and he has no clue who to speak to, or who he could trust. It could be just that this guy is personable, and he is one of the few guys who brings in donuts to real cops, and just that the job takes him out at night instead of during the day, but it makes so much more sense that he is just a bad guy. He'd never been able to get into the home, but he could find out who owns the home through records. It is some big company owned by another company trying to get into real estate, which looks fishy. This is just some small home though. He found out where Zook lived and checked that out as well. That is owned by a trust that has purchased it some time ago, still no names he might be able to work with. He tries the directional microphone again, and there is still this screeching in the background. He can't hear a thing when he tries to get anyone while they are talking. The app on his phone buzzes a couple of times, and he feels them, but doesn't check them yet. He has to watch and see. People are pulling up, mostly fancy-dressed people, and he wants to see if he could get some more pictures. He has to catch something on camera about these men and women, who could be vampires. There is no activity of anyone going in, or leaving for perhaps 20 minutes or so he checks the app from his home camera. Oh no, the motion detection caught some movement, but what he can see is mostly shadow, and then the cameras are covered with something. How long ago was this? An hour? He thinks of the many things there. They must have found him somehow. He checks the different cameras of the app. They did catch a couple of people walking around, but not for more than 5 seconds, and the cameras were seen and covered with something. He supposes if this is a vampire, they could be good at detecting cameras or motion sensors. He then realizes what he has around the place. Pictures of where he is, right now, outside the studio watching, and waiting. So he packs up the gear, and walks out from under the tree where he is hiding.
You know.
A surprise, and familiar voice, one he has heard many times before, in about the same casual tone.
I have always thought, this is a pretty good vantage point, if someone wants to check out the meetings from a distance, or trying to kill us.
Zook is standing right in front of him.
Don't fight, we aren't here to hurt you.
Detective Cooper feels the fear, and the little defiance he has been building all of this time, and doesn't believe the words trying to manipulate his mind and body. A shot back from the detective.
Liar, you will kill me the second you get a chance.
He says this as loud as he can, but it is late at night in the middle of nowhere, no one else is around to hear him. The subject of his fear says,
No, Coop, no, if we wanted to kill you, we could. We want to help.
Liar, I know what you are, and you've been around all this time.
He bares his teeth as menacing as he can, to this monster in front of him. A gun swings out from his hip. The earth floor rises up to meet his face. The thing in front of him says,
If I am, what you think I am, do you think that little thing will hurt me?
Probably not, but it will help me feel better.
The gun swings around from the detective laying on the floor, and a hand grabs it from the side. He is shaking with fear, and fixated so much, two come in from the side, and surprise him as well. The gun is aimed high, and he doesn't even have the strength to pull the trigger. The detective shakes uncontrollably, realizing any control is out of his hands.
Please don't kill me, I know what you are, and what you can do.
His old friend Zook breathes in a heavy sigh.
Oh buddy, sorry, but you have no idea what I can do. I think it is about time you take a nap, you look tired.
Detective Cooper wakes up with a bit of a headache, in the morning. He stirs a bit on his couch. Over the past few days he hadn't been able to leave his bed, then he made it to the couch, and couldn't get around from there. Man, he has been feeling terrible this week from the flu. It hit him pretty hard. He is at his place, soda cans and beers all over, his TV still on Comedy Central, and the almost new whiteboard with a couple of his new cases on it. He is hoping it would get his mind away from the sick feeling in his stomach. His phone is charging, he picks it up and looks at it, a few missed calls from his new insufferable partner on the day shift, one from the boss after he has called in those days, and one from his insufferable ex-wife wondering where the alimony payment was, as usual. He is feeling a bit better though. Compared to the last few days, he could get up, walk to the fridge, and grab a ginger ale. His stomach is in no mood for a beer this early. He also grabs a piece of meaty pizza, which fills his empty stomach. The phone is ringing again. It is the partner. He answers it.
Hey Cooper, you awake? You've been out for a bit. Are you ready to come back, all rested up? You get some rest like you mentioned you might need?
He mumbles out an answer.
Yeah, I'll be able to make it in. Feeling a little bit more like myself? Any new cases?
He gets the answer back.
Of course there are. The inconsiderate criminals didn't stop because you were on the toilet. Get a move on and get in.
He slowly grabs new day clothes that don't smell bad and aren't too wrinkled, and jumps in the shower. On the way to work, he'd give Zook a call, thanking him for coming to check in on him the day before. He has brought him that pizza, and a couple of quarts of soup around lunch to check in after hearing he could barely get out of bed. He is a decent guy.